Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress, and I'm a life and parenting coach. And over the last few weeks, we've talked about mindset and goals. Now today, let's get really practical and talk about the part of the day that trips up almost every family, and that's the morning. Today, I'm walking you through my morning routine roadmap, which is a simple 3-step system to help you build mornings that actually get your kids out the door on time without stress. This is one of my most popular free resources that I have on my website, and I want to walk you through it here so you can put it to use today. If you want to follow along as I teach this, I strongly recommend you go to my website and get the worksheet, which includes all the different things I'm teaching you today, how to build a stress-free morning. And it's at my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and it's /easy-morning. So you can find that under free resources or in the show notes. We'll link it in there. We'll also link it down below if you're watching this on YouTube. So if you have that, great. If you don't, it's okay. You can listen along and you can jot down all the notes. And this is one of those episodes where you really do probably want to have a piece of paper handy, because I'm teaching you how to really structure your morning so that it's less chaotic and more organized. And that way you can yell less and have a calm morning. That's always our goal, right? Is to become calm mamas. And that is including in the mornings. So the first step in the morning routine roadmap is a to-do list. And it sounds kind of simple, but I noticed that a lot of times we have so much in our head as moms, but we don't spend time taking what's in our brain and putting it down on a piece of paper. And so I really want you to think about the things that have to get done in the morning and creating a list of all of those things that either you need to do or you want your kids to do in order to be ready for school or camp or daycare or whatever it is each day. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down every single task, even if it seems stupid, that needs to happen for you and your kids to be completely ready. Okay. So I want you to be as specific as possible, not being vague, but actually getting into those granular lists of things that need to be done. So in the morning routine, I've written out what is typical in a family. And if you have that handy, like I said, go ahead and read through that list and circle whatever applies to you. Of course, if you don't have that roadmap handy, I'm going to list those things here. And while I'm saying them, think about whether that's true for you or your family and jot them down on a piece of paper or in a note on your phone. Okay, so here it is. First is wake up. Now, I'm going to teach you in this episode when to wake up. Like, you're going to build your morning, you're going to back it up, you're going to figure out all these things that you need to do, how long they take, and then what time your kids need to be woken up. Or what time do you need to wake up in order to get things done? What I've noticed is that for some families is that the kids wake up on their own. That was true for me. My youngest was like a 5 a.m. wake upper, which was really rough. He played by himself for about an hour, and then he would kind of like need support to have me get up with him around 6. But I didn't really want to wake up at 6. Now I don't, but now I don't have to wake up at 6. But it's, when they were little, you kind of do what you got to do. And that's what it's like to be a mom. Sometimes you have a kid who you have to wake up for school. And that was my other kid. I had to wake him up. And so what we're trying to figure out is the timing. And you're going to do that by building out your list of things that need to get done and then what time you need to wake up. Now, if your kids wake up on their own, this then is going to be, when do you need to start getting into that morning routine? When do you need to get it into gear? Okay. So what is that morning routine, right? We have wake up and then get out of bed. Some kids, like I said, pop right up. They get out of bed, no problem. Other kids like to lay in bed for a long time, or it takes them a while to wake up, or they need some support. They need eyeball time. They need you to come and connect with them while they're waking up. So be thinking about that. So we have our kid, they wake up, they get out of bed. And then if it's true for you, make the bed. Okay, so they get up, they get out of bed, they make the bed, they get dressed. And that might mean taking off their pajamas. If they have a pull-up, putting that pull-up in the trash, and then getting on their school clothes. I encourage families to have that happen pretty much right when they get up. What I've noticed is if they stay and play in their pajamas, you're creating another transition to get them back to their bedroom to get dressed. And it can be really hard once a kid starts playing for them to stop and get back into the routine of like getting dressed. So we get up, and this is the basics, right? We get up, we make the bed, we get dressed. That means taking off pajamas, taking off if there's diapers in the mix here. Then brush teeth. I always taught my kids to brush their teeth before we made breakfast. Again, I wanted to get all those morning things kind of done all at one time. We have a 2-story home. So while they were upstairs, they were getting dressed, they were brushing their teeth, they were kind of tidying up whatever they needed to do in their bedroom. Then I had to make breakfast, right? And then the kids had to eat breakfast. I had to make lunch, pack that lunch, get that all organized. Then the kids had to put their socks on. They have to put their shoes on. They have to gather any sort of school supplies. So gathering homework, stuffing things into the backpack. If you have your kids do chores in the morning, make sure that's on the list. Then getting that lunch in the backpack. So I would put my kids' lunch boxes on the counter, and their job by the time they were in kindergarten was to take that lunchbox and put it in their backpack. That was part of their 5 things that they were responsible for. Also, if you're going straight after school to activity or someplace else, if they have aftercare and they need to have a change of clothes or whatever they need, I want you to also put that on the list that you have to gather after school stuff. Then everything needs to get into the car. Everyone needs to get buckled. And then you need to drive to school. You need to either park the car or do the carpool line or the drop-off line, and then walk your kid to the classroom or make sure they get transferred to the gate, right? So if you think about a morning, there's actually kind of a lot of different things that are part of the morning, right? You have your tasks of making breakfast and making lunch. Maybe make lunch in the night before. If you do, that's great. But we still have filling water bottles or whatever. I personally never could make lunch the night before. I was actually too tired after bedtime or even gearing up for bedtime. It was too exhausting for me. So I always had more energy in the morning. So I just kind of used the energy that I had and I would make the lunches. Also, one of my kids really enjoyed hot food. So I had to heat it up anyway and put it into a thermos. And so I might as well do it in the morning. So, well, I would get the kids up and out of the bed and dressed. And then I would go do my work of making those breakfasts and making those lunches and getting the lunchbox on the counter while they were probably playing or whatever. My older one, he literally just did those morning things and came straight to the table. He wasn't even a breakfast eater. And so a lot of times he would just go straight, get dressed, get out of his pajamas, brush his teeth, make his bed, kind of. I wasn't always honestly good at having them do that. And then he would go kind of straight into socks and shoes and into the car because he just was such a sleepyhead. Okay, so if you are thinking about this list, I really want you to be as specific as possible. And if it's only a few things, that's fine. If you have a lot of extra stuff you want to add, you want to be really detailed, that's good too. Just really, at this point, I want you to have everything that needs to happen in the morning on one piece of paper or in one note. Because we're going to take that list and we're going to add the amount of time each of those tasks take. Now, I know this might seem like dumb or, like why do I have to do this? I know how to get ready, but maybe you don't. Maybe the mornings are stressful. Maybe your kids are not accustomed to a rhythm or a routine and you're constantly reminding and begging and barking and yelling and nagging. And this type of work that we're doing is how we set ourselves up for success and making sure we're allowing the right amount of time for the things that we need to get done. So we start with that list and we put everything that we need to do, including driving, right? Everything that needs to happen. And then, I was going to say, if you go straight to work after drop off, then I want you to make a separate list for your morning. Like you might need to really get up, blow dry your hair, like take a shower, get your portable or your coffee, like mug going, your carpool mug. What is it called? Your commuter mug ready. Maybe you need to make your lunch. Whatever kinds of things, maybe you have to get your kind of briefcase or your items ready, if you're going to work at a school or something like that, right? You have stuff to get together too. Write your own list. So the point of this step, like I said, is just to get everything out of your head and onto paper, because you can't build a workable routine around a list that you haven't actually written down. So I want you to build this routine by first figuring out what needs to be in there. So this might be a good time to mention that podcast episode I did last year called The 5 Things, Easy Routines for Kids. And it's episode 192, and it came out in September of 2025, September 25th. So what the 5 things is, it's sort of my way of teaching routines to my kids or to kids. And what we do is we figure out what my kids are responsible for, the 5 things, and I talk about the 5 things over and over and over the course of several weeks. And they learn what those 5 things are. So the 5 things were: get dressed, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, get your lunchbox and backpack, and put your socks and shoes on. So about 5 minutes before it was time to leave, I would say, hey, have you done your 5 things? Now, of course, they'd already had been gotten dressed and brushed their teeth because they did those right away. I taught them to do those right away. And then I would say, have you done your 5 things? And so they would have to ask themselves, do I have my lunchbox? Do I have my water bottle? Do I have my socks and shoes on? And they would be thinking about what was needed. That's what you want, is for your kids to start to build in this internal guide about what's expected, the list of things, right? The 5 things. And so you teach them how to be responsible for those 5 things. And then you look them in the eye and say, have you done your 5 things? Now, if you look around and you know that you can see that lunchbox on the counter and it's not in the backpack, and your kids are, kind of putting their socks and shoes on, I'd rather you not say, go get your lunchbox. I'd rather you look and say, oh, have you done your 5 things? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? What else is missing? And then find out if they have, brought their lunchbox or whatever it is. Oh, my lunchbox. If you have a kid who goes, oh, my lunchbox, and they're doing their own thinking, you are winning. You are winning. That's an important part of the process. Okay, so now you have your list. You're teaching your kids their 5 things. I want you to, the step 2 is to figure out how long each task actually takes. So you're going to look at the list and you're going to write down how many minutes that task takes. So I want you to be honest with yourself. Choose the amount of time based on what is reasonable to expect you and your kids to achieve. Not how long you wish it took, but how long it actually realistically takes to do that task. Based on what's reasonable for you and your kids, based on your kid's skill set. If you have a kid with ADHD, you're going to probably need to allow extra time. So this might be a work in progress. You might not know exactly how long get dressed takes for your 5-year-old until you do it a few days, and then you track it a little bit. So it's okay if you just make guesses right now. Your list and the time is going to evolve as your family builds this rhythm. So what's interesting, I think, about this exercise is that a lot of parents underestimate how long something is going to take, and they overestimate how capable their kids are. That's where we all get into trouble, is when we are thinking something will go faster or isn't going to take that long. And I want you to be able to anticipate like kind of the longest something would take. Now, I don't want you to allow too much time, because then kids start to get squirrely and start playing and stuff like that. But I'd love for you to build a whole routine with your family that is realistic, and say, they have to do all these tasks between 7:15 and 7:45, right? Get dressed, brush their teeth, eat breakfast, get their socks and shoes on, and put their lunchbox in the backpack. If all of that takes about 30 minutes or 35 minutes and you don't have to leave until 8:10 and you're done at 7:45, great, then they can play. I want your kids to be able to have the freedom to play in the morning and to regulate their nervous systems and have a joyful morning, but we also want them to be responsible for the time. So being able to know about how much time things take and then building your routine based on that. So if you think getting dressed takes 5 minutes and then it actually takes more like 15, once you account for that negotiation over which shirt and all of that stuff, then you're going to want to allow for that much time. Now, let me go back about ADHD kids. I think that when you have a kid who has executive functioning, time blindness is a big thing for kids in general, but particularly kids with ADHD. We have to sort of create smaller windows of time for them to get it done so that there's more urgency. What's cool about someone with ADHD is they can do a lot in a short amount of time once that hyper focus kicks in, but it can be hard to get them into that hyper focus. So you're going to say, like, you can leave this room once you get dressed, and I hope you beat the timer. Like, you can gamify it. Or remember, you're welcome to play Lego or play with your dolls or color downstairs or whatever it is once you get dressed, as long as you finish before the timer goes off. So you kind of want to create some motivation in the mornings to get them to do the thing faster. But allow for that negotiation, allow for that time that you're going to talk to them and work it out. I want your mornings to be paced realistically. Okay, now step 3, right, is build the timeline. So you have your list, you have your amount of time it takes, and now we're going to build a timeline by working backward. So you start with the time that your kids need to be at the classroom door, like when the bell rings and when they need to be on campus. And then you're going to figure out what time you need to leave the house to arrive on time, factoring in drive time, parking, or going through the carpool line. I want you to be thinking about those different, maybe there's traffic, or maybe there's concerns like getting out of your driveway or whatever. I want you to really be practical of, like, if I want to get my kids to school at 8:20, then we should be in the car by 8 o'clock, whatever that is. So work backward through your to-do list and your timekeeper log, task by task, until you land on the time that everyone actually needs to get up. The key here is building in enough time for each task without stress or rushing. All right, let me give you an example of how this works, because I think it'll be helpful for you to hear kind of an example in real time. Okay, say the school bell rings at 8:30 and you need to arrive by 8:20 to allow time to park and walk, and it takes 20 minutes to drive to school. So you need to leave the house at 8. And then working backward from there, you figure out, okay, you said socks and shoes take 5 minutes. So then that means that we need to be putting socks and shoes on at 7:55. Packing up, like tidying up before, you leave, clearing the plates, putting backpacks and lunchboxes, getting all that organized. Maybe you said that takes 5 minutes. So then that means you need to start wrapping up at 7:45 and getting everybody kind of towards the door. Now remember, that's for an 8 o'clock leave time. So you're looking at, like, in our minds, we pretty much think that those, like, getting out the door takes about 4 minutes, like getting socks and shoes and grabbing your backpack. We don't allow enough time. But if you see, once you start to build it in, you're like, oh, that takes 5 minutes. Oh, that takes 5 minutes. Oh, that takes 5 minutes. Okay, so I need to say we're leaving soon at 7:45 to leave by 8. That means breakfast needs to be done by 7:45. So you're like, okay, breakfast takes about 10 minutes. I need to have breakfast from 7:35 to 7:45. Or maybe breakfast takes 15. So you're like, okay, breakfast is going to be on the table from 7:30 to 7:45. That's my goal time. So when you're building your schedule, you're like, I got to get breakfast on the table by 7:30 in order for everybody to get out the door by 8. I really want you to be able to see how important it is to know about how much time things take, because we definitely underestimate. Like I said, we underestimate how long something is going to take. So that means that the kids have to be getting their teeth brushed at 7:35. They got, if you said 5 minutes for getting dressed, they need to be getting dressed at 7:25. They need to be getting their bed made by 7:20. That means they need to be getting up at 7:15 or 7:10. So we're looking at that timeline and we're realizing, oh, okay, I've got to build in a little bit of extra time for connection. I've got to, allow for a little bit of time that I need to get from getting them out of bed and kind of like monitoring that getting dressed period of time, especially if they're under 7. You really are going to be part of that transition out of pajamas and into clothes and into the bathroom to get their teeth brushed. About by 8, or if you've been doing a rhythm, by 8 years old, they can handle it on their own. If you are starting this with an 8-year-old, you're going to need to be present for that time. So you're helping them get dressed and all of that, but there's no breakfast or lunch done. So thinking about where you are and where you need to be. So maybe they need to be getting up at 7:10 and you want to maybe already have had breakfast done. So that means if breakfast and lunches take about 20 minutes and you want to get your kids up at 7:10, you might want to be down at the kitchen by 6:50 to allow that 20 minutes to get all that prep work done before you go get your kids out of bed. So this process of working through the routine and figuring out the tactical aspects of what happens and when it happens and all of that is going to be important. But notice that the whole timeline is built backward from the time that your kids have to be at school. And then every single step has an actual time attached to it, not a vague, like sometime in the morning. So that specificity, is that how you say it? Is what makes mornings predictable instead of chaotic. So if you feel like your morning is really out of bounds and out of control, spend time thinking about, what do I want to get done? How long is it going to take? When is it going to happen? And then work yourself back from the time you want to be leaving for school. I'm going to say it again. It sounds so silly, but I have done this with like hundreds of parents at this point. And every single time we walk through one of these timelines or these roadmaps, the parent is like, "Oh my God, okay, so they have to get up at 6:45." I'm like, "Okay, great." Like a clarity comes, a realization of what is necessary comes, and you're like, "Oh, now I understand. I haven't been allowing enough time. That's why I'm so stressed." Or I've been allowing too much time, or I haven't been getting started early enough. I've been letting it go because I don't want to deal with it. I notice that happens at bedtime too. If you are like dreading the routine, you kind of don't get it started. And then you get backed up into like, now it's so late, the kids are overtired. Same thing happens in the morning. If you have kids that wake up on their own, you want to like have an easy morning. They're in pajamas, they're rolling around, and you want to like drink your coffee and kind of like breathe and be a human. I get it. But at the same time, if you don't kind of snap into gear early enough, you will feel rushed at the end. So that's that morning routine roadmap. I think it's a really useful tool. I'd love for you to get a copy of it at my website, calmmamacoaching.com. You can go to the resources page or just go to easy-morning and you'll see this morning routine roadmap and you can just get a copy of it. So I want to give you a couple tips that will also help you with your morning to make it work. These are 5 things that make the difference between this system working and it just becoming another source of stress. So the first one is lower your standards. Only 3 things matter in the morning. Your kids are wearing clothes, they're relatively clean, and they've eaten something in the last 12 hours. That's it. If they skip breakfast, fine, bring a bar for the car. If they're mismatched clothes, it's fine. If their hair is messy, who cares? Peace is always more important than perfection. If you build in a good rhythm and you have time to do a really beautiful braid or a really great high pony or whatever it is, or like, spend time building some kind of like cool Lego thing, or some people like to do enrichment type of activities in the morning. I think that's wonderful if you're able to build that in and have it be stress-free. But if it's stressful, then it's not worth it. Number 2 is to keep things simple. Overcomplicated routines make everything harder on you. Repeat the same breakfast, repeat the same lunches, limit clothing choices, have 1 pair of school shoes, keep socks and school shoes staged by the door, fill water bottles the night before, or don't even send them water. If they are not going to be responsible and you keep losing water bottles, it's fine. They can drink from the fountain at recess. So you get to make your life work for you and make it simple. You don't have to make it so expansive. I remember having this mom friend. Her name is Becky. And she had 4 kids. And I was like, "Oh my God, how do you make lunches for 4 kids every day? Like, that's so stressful." And she's like, "Oh, everyone gets the same thing. And I just make sandwiches every day." And I was like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Yeah, I just make the same lunch every single day. And that's how I do it." And I realized I was like overcomplicating things, trying to make sure that my kids had all the things that they preferred, all their preferred foods. And I was catering to their wishes instead of just considering what would give them a balanced meal. And once I started to simplify breakfast, simplify lunch, and not give them choice. What do you want for breakfast? What do you want in your lunchbox? I know that you think that's probably helpful because you don't have to do the decision making and the thinking, but it does create so much chaos. Well, I want yogurt. Well, I want waffles. Well, I want oatmeal. It's like, no, you're not a short order cook. Don't do that to yourself. Keep things really simple. Keep it to the basics. This is a controversial one, but drop the pressure to be on time. You are a good person, even if your kids are occasionally late. The school timeline is not your timeline. It's not worth sacrificing your peace and your connection with your kid. When something goes wrong, the alarm doesn't go off, or someone melts down, be like, oh, well, we'll get there when we get there. Stress doesn't actually make mornings move faster. It usually creates more meltdowns and forgetfulness, which costs you even more time. So if you can drop that pressure and be okay with maybe being late every once in a while, you will probably find that you're on time, or you're at more peace, right? So we want to be able to not feel that pressure. Now, for me, when my kids were little, the school bell rang at 8:45, but I wanted to go to an exercise class at 8:30, and they had early recess, like before the bell recess, which was really useful for my kids because they could go to the recess and like run around and see their friends and all of that. So my goal was always to get to school at 8:15 so I could drop them off and then I could go to my exercise class. Those are the days that I took the kids. The other days my husband took the kids, which was handy. But because I had this huge window of time built in for like being late, that I wasn't really ever that stressed. I mean, I might be late to my exercise class, which was annoying to me, but I still had a lot of extra time built in. I know it's hard, but I'd love to invite you if your school has early recess or earlier drop off and your kids can like kind of play and run around a little bit. It's really good for their nervous system to be outside and get fresh air and move their body before they go sit in a classroom. So aiming for that earlier time can be really helpful for you, especially if you follow this timeline and you push that timeline up, keep things really simple, do the basics. Then if you're rushing or running late, you won't feel that worried about it. The other thing I want to talk about is looking for patterns. So if you see that the same part of the morning keeps causing conflict, that is information for you. It usually means that you need a clearer or stronger limit around that particular stress point. If it's getting dressed or if it's eating breakfast or if it's getting socks and shoes, you want to listen to some of the limit setting podcasts that I've taught about, you are welcome to have breakfast as long as you're dressed and sitting at the table by 7:30. Breakfast will be served for 15 minutes. Then if they don't eat breakfast, oh, looks like you missed breakfast today. No problem. I packed a hearty snack for you. You'll be okay once snack time comes. Or you can do a rescue snack and have something in the car. But having those boundaries is really important because otherwise you're going to feel like you're chasing kids around with like scoops of yogurt as they're playing. That's chaotic. The last thing I want to say about this is being kind to yourself. So new routines, they take time to stick, and be gentle with yourself the first few weeks of school, the first few weeks of establishing a routine, remembering that you're building a peaceful morning routine, committing to it and keep going, even if it's messy. Don't blame your kids if your routine isn't working. That is only because they don't know yet that this is the way it works in your family. Take that leadership. Keep working on the routine. Keep being consistent with the behavior that you want. If you want your kids to leave the room once they're dressed, say, you can leave this room once you're dressed. I really hope you have a good breakfast. Okay. You can leave this bathroom once you've brushed your teeth. You can sit at the table once you're dressed. Oh, are you dressed? You're not dressed. Go back and put your pants on. Right. So holding those boundaries is going to help your routine long term. But putting in the work and teaching your kids the routine without getting angry is going to be really helpful. They'll feel more bought in. Now, it is possible to have this peaceful morning. It really is. You just keep working at your routine. So this roadmap that I've walked you through, it works hand in hand with that gentle handoff concept that I've talked about over the last few weeks, about trying to deliver the most emotionally regulated human you can at that school gate. The roadmap gets the logistics handled. But remember, the actual goal isn't to have a perfectly executed timeline. It's delivering that calm, regulated version of your kid to the classroom. So the roadmap removes a lot of the chaos that makes staying calm so hard in the first place. And don't forget that we always want to have those eyeball times in the morning where you give a few minutes or even just like 1 minute where you make eye contact with your child and you connect with them. And, I love you. Good morning. I'm really glad that you're here. I hope you have a great day, right? Having that time before they leave to school, looking at them, I'll miss you. I love you. I hope you have a great day, right? Before you separate for the day, that you've made a moment of eyeball connection with them. That's not going to be a task on your to-do list, but if you need to put it on there, you can. But it will probably be one of the most important parts of the whole morning is that connection. So here's the recap. You're going to build your to-do list. You're going to time each task honestly, and then you're going to build a realistic timeline working backward from the moment your kid needs to be at the classroom door. And layer in those 5 tips. Lower your standards, keep it simple, drop the pressure to be on time, watch for patterns, and be kind to yourself while it all comes together. And remember that all these logistics, they're in the service of creating a calm family, right? You're not a drill sergeant. You're not trying to get your kids trained for the military. We just want to have a rhythm and a routine that's predictable and reliable and calm so that your kids know what is expected. They get their stuff done. They get it done in the timeline that you want them to do. And you get in the car and you are off to school or to the bus or whatever your situation is, or the carpool or whatever it is. So we're working towards that gentle handoff, that calm, connected handoff. So you have an on-time arrival, but you also have a kid who's regulated. Now remember, there is a worksheet for this. It's in my website, calmmamacoaching.com, under the resources page, or you can go directly to calmmamacoaching.com/easy-morning. And we'll also link that in the show notes. So I'd love for this week for you to just start with writing that list of the things that need to get done in the morning and putting the time stamps to each one. And then noticing during the week, is your time realistic? And also starting to realize, like, what rhythm do you like? What's the order of events that you want your kids to do these things in? So this week as school starts, I want you to just be a witness and look for those patterns, noticing, oh, I said that I wanted them to do these things, but actually I don't care if they get that done. And you drop that one thing and you have them do it after school. Or you realize that breakfast is so chaotic that you actually really do need to prep lunches the night before. And you're going to just figure that out, how to make the energy work for that and simplify your meals so that they are cold. They can stay in the refrigerator and be cold. So you get to decide what works for you and build that routine, but take it slowly. Don't rush. And next week, I'll be back with more like limit setting and boundaries around sleep and screens and homework and all of those things that are so important, especially at the beginning of the year. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next week. Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.